But what was a dumb WWE moment that you didn't want to admit was genius?
Stephanie McMahon's wrestling character is a piece of
Yes.
one of the worst of all time, one of the least effective and most damaging wrestling characters of all time. During her reign of tyranny, when she was a regular TV character, she would regularly demean people. She would regularly get over people on the microphone or when she occasionally stepped in the ring. She would make people look lesser than when they started working with her. She was the ultimate Nepo baby in so many ways. She was a very expressive TV performer, and she had the abilities, and she could talk and she could emote and stuff like this, but she used these for forces of evil. The list of people that she demeaned, undermined and emasculated without ever receiving any comeback by slapping them in the face or just burying them on the microphone is almost endless. So naturally, that's the last person in the world I wanted when WWE had signed this hot new free agent, this exciting MMA prospect who had changed the game over there and was now coming over here to do the same. The last person I wanted Ronda Rousey to be involved with in her very first match was that person with the history of burials and emasculations and making people look like crap. Because it was like, oh no, here comes Stephanie McMahon, and she's not going to sell for Ronda Rousey, she's not going to be giving at all, she's not going to do anything to put her over, she might even pin her. Who the heck knows? So when this match was put together, Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Stephanie McMahon, and to make matters worse, Triple H, not exactly known for being the most giving guy of all time either, I thought it was an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Turned out to be the greatest debut match in wrestling history. Partly because Stephanie McMahon entered the best performance of her entire career. Now, a lot of this match's success, I think, was to do with the layout and the way it was structured to build to Ronda Rousey's actions and her tags and Stephanie getting out the ring as soon as Ronda was coming in until you finally pay it off and Stephanie gets her comeuppance, right? It's like the classic pro wrestling layout for the babyface side. But Stephanie was absolutely incredible in this. The work she put in to make herself look like a complete piece of trash throughout the whole thing. The work she put in from running away, scarpering away, stooging off, begging off, facial expressions, cowering in the corner, all of this stuff, getting out of the ring and gloating when she was in control. And things like that. It was as picture perfect a chicken heel, I don't know why I censored myself there, I didn't do it earlier, chicken shit heel performance as you will ever see, and it came from the most selfish person in the world who delivered the most selfless performance of all time. It's an absolute miracle, and actually probably one of my favorite WWE things ever.
I'm not entirely sure that I wasn't ready to admit it or didn't want to admit it. I'm sure if you watched my videos at the time, I went crazy about it. But broke Corbin, sad Corbin, down on his luck Corbin. It's one of the moments that make me realize there's issues with new WWE in terms of storytelling, that I prefer new WWE because old WWE, here we had this character that organically got over. People were literally giving Baron Corbin money as he walked to the ring. He was funny about it. He was dedicated to it. He grew out his hair. He grew out his beard. He would wear shirts with stains on it, which makes no sense. You're broke. You shouldn't be able to eat, I should say. But it made it funnier. And then because Vince McMahon realized he was getting babyface reactions, we just killed it and made him rich again because we didn't want to have him cheered. Why on earth would you do that? If that's the way the fans are going, just go with it. Going to be controversial now. That's why I like the whole Jey Uso stuff, because he was never meant to be in this position a couple of years ago, but then for whatever reason, don't care what it was, he did have that connection and we pulled the trigger and we went all the way, and now I think he's totally great. But I just loved it. I remember thinking it was funny. I also remember thinking that Baron Corbin had been through so many iterations of Baron Corbin. Normal Baron Corbin, Constable Corbin, obviously sort of biker Corbin, and finally from nowhere we'd come across this one that nobody ever had on their bingo card, and rather than try and be creative with it, we flushed it down the toilet. Maybe that's why now I don't want to give it, I don't talk about it so openly, because it makes me sad. It's like Bad News Barrett. Bad News Barrett, a terrible gimmick on paper. You're going to come out and say, I've got some bad news. Then you're just going to say something that's like, it's pretty sucky, I guess. But it worked, because Wade Barrett understood what to do, and we just got rid of that one as well. We could do this all day. Rusev Day, for example. I'm not even talking about the topic now. I'm just going off. Rusev Day should still be a thing today, ironically, because we went all in with it with Rusev Day calendars, a Rusev Day t-shirt. Aiden English and Lana should still be there. But we stopped because Vince McMahon thought they were cheering out of some disrespect, or they thought it was a joke. Like when AJ Styles joined. Why am I on this tangent? Like when AJ Styles joined. Oh, it was a one-off, they cheered you. Then everyone cheered him forever, because I'm the best wrestler ever. Point is, my answer on some level is sad Corbin, so don't bring it back, but if it happens again, make it work. Also, this is one of the reasons why Baron Corbin got released, right? He's had to go back to NXT to re-find himself. Wasn't even his fault. Stupid.
What was a dumb WWE moment you didn't want to admit was genius?
I sense a lot of people are going to be talking about sort of long-term ideas on this video. I am going to talk about something that was sort of a microcosm of this thing. I'm talking about IShowSpeed in the Royal Rumble, because in the matter of 5 minutes, it went from one of the dumbest things WWE could have done to one of the best things. Because we all remember the moment, I think it's Akira Tozawa gets taken out, and we saw on Unreal, they're like, oh my God, who can step in? We've got a locker room full of wrestlers that deserve a spot on this card. Let's pick the social media influencer who just so happens to be backstage. And everyone kind of collectively, I think, even if you're a Speed fan, we're a bit like, oh God, what are we doing here? And he does the whole thing and he comes out and it's like, okay, you're getting yourselves a viral moment, very nice. And he gets in there and he's a bit crap. And I think he gets an elimination. And then magic happens.
Yeah.
He turns around. We've all seen it. It's playing in your mind as I say this. He does the Sue, and he's barely got to the end of saying that when he is speared out of his goddamn shoes by Bron Breakker. I don't really care about Speed, to be perfectly honest, but for me, that is now, I think, one of my favourite ever Royal Rumble moments. Like, it replays in my mind whenever people talk about the Royal Rumble, because it was just so amazing how they played with sort of our expectations. We all went, oh God, here we go again. They love getting celebrities in and giving them moments at the expense of other wrestlers that we just think deserve the spot. And instead, it's Bron Breakker destroying IShowSpeed, chucking him out of the ring. We all saw what happened to his leg as well. It was amazing. Genuinely, at next year's Royal Rumble, as that thing counts down for number 30, I want it to be IShowSpeed again.
Well, I tend not to like to admit too many WWE things are genius right out the gate, but I was particularly cynical about the Fed in the summer and autumn of 2013 when WWE kept putting their thumb on Daniel Bryan's head in the form of the Authority, squashed him and squashed him and squashed him, to the extent where I'd not actually been that fussed about tuning into next week's Raw when I...
That never happened.
Exactly. When I discovered that the plan was for him to join the Wyatt family, I was appalled with this development. Not least because he didn't really fit with those characters, but also because it was confirmation that he was leaving the WWE title picture and it was time to get to Big Show, like we wanted all along, you know? The originator of the yes chant, of course. So I was furious. I think a lot of people were with the treatment of the character, but that was beyond the pale for me, because it was like, not only have you done this burial project, it's worked, and you've just been able to other him in this, at this point, mid-table stable, and send him out there dressed like a school janitor in his like white overalls and stuff like that. I was wrong, because I should have remembered in 2013 WWE, nothing matters, mate.
Yeah.
So by like 2 weeks later, it was all in service of just this massive moment where they realised we've made a terrible mistake here. And you had the steel cage payoff. Like, he was barely in the group, I think, a month. And then you had that iconic moment on Raw where he sat atop the steel cage and he's doing the yes and he's timing it all out. So he beats Bray Wyatt up in the cage and he rips the overalls off his back in his gear. And then everybody in the building's going, yes, yes. And we all know at that moment for definite, Daniel Bryan is going to win the 2014 Royal Rumble. And this is it. Like, it was a good and bad moment in that respect, because we did get to WrestleMania and we did get Yeselmania and everything worked out for the best. And then we would find out that Bryan was being told on that show, yeah, you're winning, but Roman Reigns is the guy, mate. Don't get excited. We'll get you back in the overalls if we want. So, like, what it taught me, if nothing else, was for the longest period going forth after that was, even if, like, you feel angry because something's dumb, like, don't care about it, because they don't either. Like, then 2022 came along. But like before that, it was a good 7-year period where it was like a good learning experience to realise that even the genius won't matter 2 weeks after it's happened. So don't worry too much about the dumb.
So a key thing that WWE have had a bit of a bad habit of not knowing when to do is pulling the trigger of late. And that's things like the Cody, Randy Orton stuff, the CM Punk being world champion, and even like a couple of years ago, you could say like Ronda Rousey against Becky Lynch. They just didn't know when to pull the trigger. They backed off. They didn't do it, and then it, like, by the time they did do it, it was too late, or they just never did it, and it was frustrating. Something that falls into that category for me is the Judgment Day, or to be more specific, the breaking up of the Judgment Day. It's something that I think around maybe WrestleMania 40 season, a lot of people were like, yeah, okay, we've had a good run, we've had a couple of years out of this, now is the time, let's break them up, let's get them to do their own different thing going forward. We've made some stars out of the group, that's what a faction is for, and now let them spread their wings. I think Damian Priest was a world champion, Rhea was a world champion, and yeah, I think, like, at that point, it would have felt fine to do. I think you had that lovely moment at Mania 40 when they were all together with the belts, and then let's just break it up. But they didn't. They kept at it for a little bit longer. And then when they did eventually have like something of a split, like when Damian Priest and Rhea went off and did their thing, and then Finn carried on with JD McDonough and Dom and all that, they didn't completely break up the Judgment Day. Again, at that point, people were like, yep, we're done, let's go for something new. Nope, they didn't. They just did like a spin-off version of the Judgment Day. And a lot of people were sat there at that point thinking, this is a bit dumb now. The faction feels like it's ran its course. What more juice can you squeeze from the Judgment Day just as a property? Well, the answer to that is actually quite a lot, because from this spin-off, we suddenly had Liv Morgan like having her like dynamic with Dom like that became this power couple that worked a lot better than what a lot of people thought it was gonna. It really did. It's clicked, and obviously she's been on the shelf or on the sidelines for a little bit, like with injury and everything else. But when they were together, they were cooking. There was something really there. And then just looking a little bit deeper into the faction in this latest version of it, JD McDonough seems to have found himself as an in-ring worker when he is actually allowed to wrestle a match. Finn Balor seems to be having the time of his life, playing this cartoonish villain type figure that always doubts Dominic, and Dom has become just super over personality in his own right. Raquel Rodriguez seems like she's rediscovering an NXT form of old in the ring, and even Roxanne Perez seems to have used this faction as a way of just finding her feet a little bit on the main roster. So against all the odds, when it seemed like it was really dumb to carry on with the Judgment Day, it's actually turned into a pretty genius move, because yeah, it's not as compelling as it was like a couple of years ago, but it's still serving a purpose, and it's still anchoring Raw week to week somehow. It's baffling to me, but yeah, it seemed dumb to not split up that team, but I've been proven wrong. Long live the Judgment Day. At this point, never break it up. I think it should be the first ever like 50-year run faction thing. Just keep it going, let the good times roll.
I was one of the many fans at the time, we're talking 2011, 2012, where I was like furious with WWE for not pushing my favourites. CM Punk and Daniel Bryan were my two favourite wrestlers, and the amount of work they had to do to force WWE into pushing them as major stars, I just found to be absolutely stupid, ridiculous, ultimately like really dispiriting. In the medium term, this actually was a dumb idea, because you could argue that this treatment of those two wrestlers in particular like created the foundation for the movement that eventually led to All Elite Wrestling, and WWE like undermined its monopoly. And I'm not saying AEW ever had a chance of really sort of challenging it, but you know, it did shake things up. It did give WWE a little bit of a fright. They've ended up paying talent more than they would like, I would argue, because of all of that. But in the long term, it is worked to quite incredible effect. WWE was adamant. I mean, they kind of had to for like to save face from like the hijacking that might have happened at WrestleMania 30, for example. They did like have to relent and do it, but the overall messaging was clear. You will like who we tell you to like. And again, the AEW thing for WWE's perspective is less than ideal. They are still trying to thwart them and undermine them at every opportunity with the counter programming, but ultimately WWE has now arrived at a point with a thriving, massive core audience that has received this messaging, which has happened like well before Bryan and Punk were on the scene, but it intensified after that. They have broadly interpreted the message, which I thought was so stupid at the time. Just give the people what they want. Put smiles on people's faces. This is your company motto. But we've now arrived at a point where this tribalistic WWE audience is so passionate about the initials that a wrestler that they've loved in the past will jump ship to AEW and are automatically bad, not good anymore, don't fancy you anyway. We've now arrived where the absolute inverse of that is true, where a wrestler that they would have deemed awful, spot monkey, gymnast, no psychology, everything else, right? It's now a win for them, because that wrestler who they previously would have written off terrible, they're one of these dubbers that work for AEW, is now someone who had great talent, great potential, great skills all along. That idiot Tony Khan just happened to fumble them. This like relentless years, decades long campaign of the brand is the star, WWE matters above all else. Stupid at the time, medium term even dumber, long term Like, they could call up anyone from NXT at this point and think, well, they're a future superstar, because they happen to work for a company with the initials WWE. I cannot believe this worked, and I cannot believe the shift in the audience. I never saw it coming. It worked. Dumb as hell, and it works on people like you, Wilborn, and you're kind of responsible.
Fair.
But it worked. Dumb as hell, and it's the most successful ploy ever. Ridiculous, but it worked.